Hello, LMS. We are here tonight. We're very excited out of our WLMS studio. We're back again having another conversation about health and wellness with our special guest, Ann DeGennaro. And we started this conversation back in December with the superintendent's call to action. And we were looking specifically about health and wellness in Mercer County. And we're bringing you the latest topic. We met again with you in late January. We talked to you about all the resources. We had our guidance counselors here, our CST team here, and we talked about the resources that we have here in Lawrence Township and at Lawrence Middle School. So tonight we're lucky enough to have our student assistance counselor for the district, Ann DeGennaro here, and we're going to be talking specifically about vaping. Vaping seems to be the hottest thing right now. It was in the New York Times. There was an article in the New York Times recently about it. The Princeton Police Department is going to be having a special night on April 30th. I'm not sure if we can post a shot of that, Mrs. Kramer. And she'll put that up, the information about that. So you can see a little bit when that's coming up. Again, that's going to be April 30th. It's a public meeting at the Princeton Police Department, and the information will be on your screen. Corner House Behavioral Health will be sponsoring that. So that's an opportunity also to learn more. If after this conversation you need to hear lots more about it, because we're probably going to rock your world a little bit tonight. All right, so Ann, I think we're going to come back to us. Ann, tell us about what is vaping and why is it so popular with our teenagers, our tweens. And when we say tweens, we're not only talking about middle schoolers. We just had a little technical difficulty crash in here, sorry. So we're not only talking about high school kids,
right,
a little bit older than that, middle school kids, but you know, we're even talking about kids that are in intermediate school, possibly.
5th and 6th grade.
So what is it?
Okay, well, thank you, Ms. Molosky, for inviting me here. I'm extremely excited to be able to share some information with our parents out in the world here. To give a little bit more background so folks understand what I do.
Yes, that would be great.
I think it might be important to know that.
That would have been good, right?
Yeah, it's okay. It all works. You know, we're going to be the tag team tonight, so we're going to be good. What I do in the school, and predominantly my main focus is in the high school, as you know, but I also come to the middle school when I am needed. And what a student assistance counselor does is predominantly works with students that, you know, make some poor choices in decision making in their lives about substance use. Their social and emotional development are things that I hold dear to my heart. So students come to me for a plethora of issues and concerns about their lives and what they're dealing with. And unfortunately, what brings me here tonight is the part of what we talk about in eCigs and vaping. It has become, I can honestly tell you, from September, even from September until now, we have had an influx of students using these particular devices in the bathrooms, in the hallways, in their classrooms, and it is so easy to not detect these things.
Yeah, that was the essence of the New York Times
Exactly.
article, was that it is a national thing.
It really is.
It is not just a local thing
No.
that's happening here, but so many schools are changing policies of the, because, back when we were in school, cigarettes were popular,
yes.
Regular cigarettes.
Right.
And we've seen a decline in teenagers using, because now that they can use this, and this is very hard to detect.
Yes.
Before you can have the smell of a
Right.
cigarette.
Right.
And now.
And now with oils, we have a little example here. Oils and, I will go into a little bit more detail about these things, but, the cartridges that parents, if you look very closely at these things, look exactly like a USB drive that you put on the side of your computer. And the difficulty is, as a parent, my biggest push for all of you folks out there is education gives you power. The more educated you are about eCigs, about marijuana, about substance use, about decision making for your kids, the more power you have in being able to have these conversations with your children, to have a sit-down talk with them, because they know more than you and I will ever know.
Yep.
and they're savvy. They know where to get information. Unfortunately, they get their information in sites and websites that are not reliable, and yet they believe that they are. So what we're dealing with right now are what we call eCigs. And eCigs are pretty much, they're in variety of different forms and devices, and they're not cheap. So when you are giving your children their allowances because they work hard, which is the only reason why they should get an allowance, they work hard, you're teaching them responsibility, you may give them a few dollars a week or whatever, or you may give them lunch money. And sometimes what they do is they'll save their money purposefully for things like this. This is what is what we call a Juul. Juuls are now the most popular device for vaping, vaping e-cig, oils. And you can buy these in stores. Most often these students buy them on the internet, or they buy them on the streets. And when you get things on the streets, parents, you know as well as anyone that you have no idea what your child is purchasing. Now, these are blatantly obvious that it looks like a stick, and it looks, again, like a USB drive. And you do have a device like this that you include in there, but we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Is there an age limit for these to buy them online, or is it just buying them in a store? Is it?
It's a good question. In the stores, the age right now is 21, I believe. If not, it's 18.
I think it's 21 in New Jersey.
But on the internet, you just have to say you're 18 or 21, and they will send them to you. We have confiscated bags from Canada where our students are purchasing things, and they send them directly to your homes. So if you see a foreign package in your mailboxes and it's coming to one of your children, open it. Absolutely, positively open it. If it looks like something that you're not aware of, bring it to the school. Ms. Malofsky will be happy to provide you information.
Yeah.
Or if you're a parent of a teenager, please, by all means, come to the high school and visit me. I am there, or go to your administration in the high school. We would be happy to provide you some information and give you knowledge about these things. So the problem is, students believe that these e-cigs have no nicotine in them. And in fact, I've done some research through the CDC and other reliable sources that I go to, the National Institute of Drug Addiction. And I did a little research on these things, and they found that even those oils that are in these devices actually carry at least 4 carcinogens.
Yeah, I was reading that also.
And those are cancer-causing products.
Right.
So we need to look at, why are these kids so hype on using these things? So, Ms. Malofsky, I'm going to ask you, what do you see in your school?
In terms of what?
What students talk about when it comes to these things?
Well, we've confiscated a couple, but we don't have a lot of conversation about it, unfortunately.
I mean your kids. Do you hear kids talking about it?
They don't really talk about it unless they've gotten caught. So
Okay.
that's the issue. And so the conversation usually is there's lots of kids doing it. And,
That's the
and they don't think there's anything bad about it because they're thinking it's just this oil.
Exactly.
And that it's not harmful to their system. So, but they talk about there's like a lot of people doing it, so they're trying it. But there's not a whole lot of talk about it. That's what's different about high school, than middle school.
Right.
Because at this age, they're just kind of experimenting with it.
And questioning what is this stuff.
You're right.
So, and I asked that particularly for you because what I want to share with parents is the reason why we're seeing so many of these things is because kids talk about them. And as students talk about these things, it becomes a cool factor to many. And my pitch and my goal and my desire in Lawrence is to de-cool all of the things that are harmful to our kids.
Yep.
And these are harmful. These are devices that, in my professional experience, are called a gateway to other products.
Yep.
That a student may, in fact, now experiment with something like a Juul. And this is an e-cig, which kind of looks like a pen. And these are even more concerning to me as a substance abuse addictions counselor because what oftentimes happens with these as an e-cig is they also use these with marijuana.
Okay.
And when
So can you use marijuana with this style
most
also?
certainly can.
And then there's the bigger one. I think we have a picture of
some
that
pictures that maybe we
on
can put
another
on.
slide. So we can show you what some of these devices look like up close. While they're doing that, we'll talk a little bit. But what we see too is, this looks like a USB. You wouldn't think, this almost looks like a little flute even. It's not.
Yeah, it's kind of a funky looking device, and you really, if you're not aware of it,
what
which
it
now
is,
you
wouldn't
are
know.
parents,
Yeah.
you'd have no idea what this was. A mom would look at this, and to be honest with you, I would have a little panic-stricken area because it looks like a pregnancy test. And
That specific
yeah,
one,
in this
yeah,
particular,
yeah.
I mean, so there's so many things out there that, and you're not alone, parents. You're not alone. There are so many people that really are just not familiar with a lot of what, we're showing you at the moment. Do we have those slides?
Yep.
Okay, so if you look at some of the slides that we're showing you right now, these are examples of the different types of pens, of the different types of e-cigarettes that are out there. They're also called vapes. A vape is a little bigger in its device, and I think we have a picture of those.
Oh, here we are. That's okay.
It's all good. We're doing well.
We have great helpers in our studio tonight. Mrs. Kramer is here, and Cornelia is here helping us. So we're getting to that slide. Okay, it's up.
Okay, so what you're seeing right now are the cartridges that are used in some of the devices that we had shown you, but also others that are fairly large. So the larger devices that we've confiscated at the high school level, and we confiscate all of these things whenever a student, comes in and sees these things and exposes us to them. So we do confiscate those things, and then they end up having a conversation with Ms. D. And I could tell you through my conversations with students that they don't feel that this is harmful to them. And this is a concern, a great concern to me, to our schools, to our communities, and quite honestly, nationally. It's what I'm considering the opiate epidemic of our schools.
Yeah.
Because, we deal with a lot of issues in our schools when it comes to drug and alcohol issues. It's not uncommon. It's been there forever. But now we have this new device that is now rampant in our schools. So we really want you guys out there to really think about what you're seeing in your students. What are you seeing?
And when we say in our schools, we're not saying that we're seeing them,
No.
In school,
No.
Vaping it up. It's
Right.
that we're getting reports that kids are using these
Exactly.
recreationally at parties.
Yes.
That they're experiencing, they're hanging out with their friends,
Right.
they're doing it,
Right.
Hanging out wherever they're going in the town and so forth. So it's not,
No.
yes, we have confiscated some of these.
Right.
Obviously, that's why we have them.
Right.
In school, but we're really talking about a bigger
We are.
picture here,
And
outside of school behavior.
Absolutely. And we're really addressing it to you, the parents.
Yeah.
We want you to know that we are more concerned than anyone to make sure that your kids are safe and that they're healthy. And that, if we can get you folks to understand that there's things that you could do. And I'll say it again, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to any type of substance use, identification, and issues of that nature. I commend you, Ms. Malofsky, for doing this.
Well, we
Not
appreciate
many
it.
schools take this opportunity to educate parents, and to have this opportunity is great for you folks out there.
Well, we're trying to get people to be knowledgeable about what's happening and what's out there, and hopefully we're going to prevent something really tragic from happening. And that's the main thing, because as you said earlier, right now we're just experiencing, we're putting this in there, and we
Right.
don't know necessarily the long-term effects of that. The FDA has not, they haven't been out long enough.
Exactly.
And the same thing happened when cigarettes first came
That's
out.
right.
Everybody just thought it was cool, and then all these studies were done, and they're like, oh, we shouldn't be smoking,
Exactly. Because we're dying.
Right, and so I think people really realize that we don't know enough necessarily. We do know that putting anything, that's not out of
Foreign in our
the
body.
fruits and vegetable aisle is probably not a
Not that
good
great.
idea. I mean, even cookies are not good for you, right? So we don't know what some of this is. Now you add a battery to it. What is
Right.
that doing, heating it up? And then the next thing is, as you said, you're using some of these devices to put other substances into it.
That's right.
And you know, it's that gateway to the next thing. And if someone just gave this to you at a party and said, "Oh, try it," you're thinking it's this, and not realizing it might be laced with something else.
Right.
And that, unfortunately, is when the tragedies happen, and it's the
Absolutely.
scary part. So I'm not sure if we can take a break, Mrs. Kramer. If we have what we have is we have breaks. So we have some videos that our students have done throughout the year, not necessarily on the topic that we're talking about tonight, but just so we can take a little break. But before we take that break, if you want to call in tonight, if you're watching, some of you probably are watching this as a replay video back, but if you're out there watching us tonight and want to call in, you can do so. The phone number is right there, 671-5520, extension 4934. You have Ms. DeGennaro here to answer any questions. It doesn't necessarily have to be about vaping. It can be about something else that you're concerned about. So call in, and we would be happy to take any questions that you have. And we're ready for a video. We're ready for a video. So we're just going to take a short break because it's really hot in here and we need to get a sip of water, to be honest with you. So we'll be back in a second.
Come on, go! One and dead. There you go. One and give it. One and give it. Go! One, two, three, cards!
Just saw were from Mr. Stamatelos' class. He had his students had created those, and so we're excited to share some of those great videos with you that shows all the great happiness of LMS and our kids, and what a great time that we have here. So we're back.
Great.
And we're writing that question down, and we're going to go to a slide, I think, Cornelia, if you can, that's called, what's the slide that you wanted her to talk about?
Well, I think it's important that our parents know that, you know, there are students that have recently used an e-cig. We're more than 7 times as likely as a non-user to smoke a conventional cigarette. So my point in saying this to you is that some students or a child or your child, maybe you confiscate something like this, and their rationale behind it will be, but these aren't addictive. And the reality of it is, this may not be addictive now, but according to the surveys and the research out there, when they begin to use an e-cig and vape oils, the chances and likelihood are 7 times higher that they will then begin to use regular cigarettes. So when we are looking at cigarette use, I think we're going
What was
to
the percentage
see.
you just said?
They're 7 times as likely, more
7 times as
likely,
likely,
than a
wow.
non-smoker
Wow.
to then smoke in their second year
Wow.
of using these. And
That's a lot.
yeah, it is really a lot. And the mind-blowing stat that we want to talk about is, and this is the unfortunate stat that as an addictions counselor makes me sad, that our treatment centers are now seeing children as young as 11 years old coming to their treatment centers for addiction. So we're looking at a national concern about, what we're seeing. And I'll say it again, I've been in other districts, and I'm pitching Lawrence right now because I have not been in a district that has honestly said, let's address this stuff. Let's actually talk about it.
We need to.
Let's not, we're not saying that we have this major issue, but we're saying we want to try to prevent
Yeah.
anything from happening
You know,
in the future.
we had such a great conversation. 2 weeks ago, we had the viewing of Screenagers, and the parents in the room, they shared so much information with each other. They were so knowledgeable. We were trying to help them with lots of stuff. They had great ideas on how to monitor their child's cell phone, the things that they were doing at home. The same thing needs to happen with this stuff.
Yes.
Yes. We need to be talking to, like, if you're seeing these things in your home, you need to call your friend of whoever your child hangs out with and say, are you seeing this too? Or I'm noticing this, or I found this in my house. Did you? We can't be afraid to have those conversations. And as we've told you on different times that we've had, that we've met, call us. Like,
Ask
if
us the
you
questions.
are having difficulty and you don't know, call us. Or if you can't have that conversation with another parent, call us, because we can help have that
Absolutely.
conversation.
Absolutely.
And then you don't feel like you're on the spot. You don't feel that you're challenging another parent and how they parent. It's really not about that. The main thing is, how do we keep our kids safe?
Absolutely.
How do we
And healthy.
keep them healthy? Right, happy and healthy.
That's it.
And we are up against so much because we're competing against, everything is, against the family unit, unfortunately.
Yes.
Trying to grab them for different things, and these devices, also play a role in that. So,
Yes.
So whatever we can do to help with that conversation, it's
Absolutely.
really important.
Absolutely.
So,
And-
one of the things, we moved all this stuff to the front of the table because the caller, which we really appreciate, thanks for calling us, is they wanted to see these items closer up. So we hope that we got them closer for you. We're trying to get them closer up for you, and we'll try to maybe even move them closer as the evening goes on.
Absolutely.
So we're looking at this slide here about how significant is addiction with our kids, and it's talking about admissions.
Yes.
So why don't you talk a little bit
Sure.
about that?
Listen, the first thing I will say to any parent out there, I'm talking, and I'm hoping that we're talking to a number of you out there. Addiction in my training, and I will speak for me, is a disease. Addiction is a disease. Addiction, I equate it to, when I talk to my students, is like diabetes. When you have something that is difficult for you to regulate in your own self, you need help to fix it. The unfortunate thing is that there is still this stigma around addiction.
Yeah.
And we have so many students that walk around, and parents and adults and family members and people that we know who are so fearful in getting assistance because there's still that stigma of, you're that crazy person on the street that's, doing horrible things to yourself.
Right.
When in reality, it's not that way.
Yeah, we had the conversation about mental health, and being afraid
Exactly.
to go and get the help that they need.
Right.
But you need to take that step. And that first step is the most difficult, and you might have to keep taking that step. But we're here to lift you up and hold you and get you to the help that you need.
Absolutely.
But you're absolutely right. You can't be afraid.
No, don't be afraid. Talk to them. Here's my philosophy with any student that makes a bad decision and their choices. No one ever wakes up and says, I'm going to be an addict. No one. But it starts somewhere. And for some, it's this. This can be the beginning of the demise of their life. And I'm not saying that to do a scare tactic or anything of that nature. But what I'm merely saying is when any of your kids, you see something like this, or you get a phone call because somebody confiscated something like this. My philosophy in my office is always this saying. If it caused a problem for you, it's a problem. It's time to look at it. Whether it's this, or cheating, or skipping a class, or doing something of that nature, it's your opportunity, parents, to have a conversation. Now, does it mean you want to rip them apart and be like, how could you do this? No. Sit down and say to them, look, are you disappointed? Absolutely. Kids hate when you tell them you're disappointed. They hate it. Hate it. Because they don't want to disappoint you. They don't want to disappoint their parents. Yeah. And when you say
teachers.
No adult that they
Yeah.
respect.
Yeah.
And when we look at these things and we say, I want to talk to you about it because it's a bad choice, it's different. What I hear from my students always is, my parents don't listen. And I ask them, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean they don't listen? And here's a classic example. They might have a problem with their friend, and they want to talk to you because they need to get it off their chest. So when they talk to you getting it off their chest, the natural response to a parent is, I want to protect you. Don't hang out with them anymore. They're bad for you. They're this. When in reality, sometimes the kid just needs for you to hear it. And in these cases, even more so. If your child is experiencing something and they don't have the coping skills to be able to handle it, and they don't feel like they could talk to you about it, open up the door for communication. Because we are looking at rehab centers that have kids that are as young as 11.
That's what that statistic said. As I only read part of it when I started, and then I looked at it again, and I'm like, by age 11. And that's fifth and sixth grade. Fifth and sixth grade.
I mean,
so.
that means in any type of change theory, when you're thinking about using something, there's a 2-year time frame. So they started to hear about these things, the addicts, at 9 years old. 9.
Wow.
9.
Wow.
I will tell you in my work experience, in my history, the youngest addict I've ever had was 9.
Wow.
And we found that this particular young man was hiding bottles of vodka in his locker.
Oh my goodness. Wow. I
So-
thought you were going to say under his bed.
No, in his
'Cause that's-
locker.
But wow.
And, unfortunately, this was years back, but it just was so disheartening to think that a person as young as that, the only way that they knew how to fix how they felt was to use a substance. Yeah. And you parents, you guys are the ones. You are their go-to. You are their go-to. I promise you that. Even when it's a bad place and they don't want to talk to you, they want to talk to you.
Yep.
And it's really important that we stress that to our parents out there that are looking at these things. So they're scary. Some of these things can be really scary. And it's okay. It's okay to be frightened if you find something. And it's also okay to tell your child that it scares you. Because if you let them know that it is something of concern, and we don't put our head in the sand and just turn a blind eye, the chances of that child changing their behavior is much higher. And that's what we want to do.
Yep.
We have health teachers, we have teachers, we have staff members. They're all educated about this. The entire district
Yeah,
is.
we've been very fortunate. Ann has done professional development with our staff. A lot of people want to know, what are we doing here as a school and as a district. So we're fortunate to have Ann as the student assistance counselors. Obviously, all of our guidance counselors, our case managers are aware. As you said, our health teachers, this is something that we're talking about now in health classes.
Yeah.
It's part of the curriculum because it's part of the smoking, tobacco,
Right.
drugs, and substance.
Right.
It's now part of that. It may not be found in the textbooks, but we're supplementing because it's new. So we're putting that in there. So we're really talking about this with our classes, and then we're talking about it with our staff. So Ann has done on our professional development days with not only our secondary staff members, but with our elementary teachers as well, because we need to be informed. And at those meetings, you had them crying because they're like, they're scared
Sure,
because
they're
here they are, you know, raising those babies down there. And they want to make sure they're not missing that with the kids that they're working with. So you have more slides.
I do.
Can we go to some slides?
You know, some of them are not fun to read, but, you know, I think reality is important. And just to add to what you were saying, Mindy, another reason why we wanted to educate, you know, the entire district is, you know, maybe there is a little person out there that may have found their brother or sister's thing.
Yep.
And and now they bring it to the attention of a teacher, and now the teacher's now educated enough to say, okay, this is something that, you know, we need to talk to mom and dad about. So if you're educated, now you're savvy enough to say, okay, I know what this is, so we need to talk about it.
And there's a lot more of these things out there.
Yes.
Like when I'm driving,
different kinds.
when I'm driving, I see people in their vehicles, and the entire car is filled with smoke. But I'm just noticing it more, like even going out places where for the longest time, because you're not allowed to smoke in restaurants, you didn't see it. But I'm noticing a lot more adults also going to this. And again, we don't know the full long-term effects.
No.
We know there's things in there you shouldn't be putting in your body. We know that if you're also taking other medications, the effects, you don't know what those effects are. We don't know if it's going to be laced with something or it's poor quality.
Right.
But we're seeing it. So you're absolutely right. And as we always know, young people are always watching.
Yes.
So
Yes.
who are they looking at that are doing these things?
That's right.
And they're role models for their children.
And FYI, I did get some recent research on.
We're getting our exercise
We are,
instruction
right?
videos.
With some of these, which is a cartridge. I don't know if you guys can zoom in on these things, but this is a cartridge. And for parents, or adults, shall we say, eCigs really came into play to help those that wanted to reduce their cigarette smoking.
Okay.
So that's kind of why they were developed initially, is to help those individuals that wanted to cut down on their nicotine intake. However, there are some cartridges that have been, the concentrate of nicotine is the equivalent to 20 cigarettes.
Wow.
20 cigarettes.
Oh my gosh.
So that's a pack of cigarettes. So you have a pack of cigarettes in a very small cartridge. And these kids go through these cartridges 5 or 6 a day.
So for those of people that don't know what nicotine does to you, can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what is the effects on the body from nicotine?
Well, that's not my super savvy space, so
Okay,
you can
sorry.
help me here, teacher. But I will tell you, obviously, you're all educated individuals out there, that nicotine is a cancer-causing substance, along with the 400 chemicals in a cigarette, inclusive of formaldehyde and bleach and some other products.
Nasty stuff.
Yes. So what they did was they were smart enough now to just take the oils of the nicotine and put it in a very concentrated space. So you are in, you know,
It's way more potent.
way more potent.
Yeah.
The nicotine is going directly into your lungs, which causes tar, which then causes your lungs to deteriorate.
You know,
I do
yeah,
know
you
this.
know
Oh,
it.
thank
You got
goodness.
it. It's all coming back to you
It's
now.
coming
Yeah.
now. It's coming. So you know, we have these things that are just, you know, causing havoc, and you know, it's sad because we started to see a decrease in cigarette
Yes,
smoking.
right.
And now with the ratio of these things happening, I will guarantee you, it's a no-brainer that we're going to see more people.
In the New York Times article, they said when they interviewed 8th graders, they said 45% of them said that they had tried it at least once. I think that's even higher at this point, because this article was like, you know, it's a couple weeks ago, but when they did the actual survey,
Sad.
was even before that. You know, because again, the window of time for this is not a lot of information.
And you know, we're not.
45%, you know, that's
That's
for us,
almost half
almost
of our
half
kids.
of our kids.
So.
So we're talking about almost 150 of our 8th graders that are
Are at
possibly
least
using
yes,
this.
or at least
Been exposed
tried
to it
Right.
somehow.
So we talk about why. Okay, why do kids do these things? Well,
And do you have a slide on that or no?
I don't know.
Okay.
Do I have a student? Okay. The reason why, I'll give you the number one reason why kids use these. They think it's cool.
Cool. Yeah.
And they think they can get away with it. And they think, look at me, I have a $55 device, which is pretty much what a Juul cost, which I don't know where they get the money to spend $55
Right.
on this. And what I do is when I have students who talk to me in confidence and share that they're doing these things, I also do a cost ratio. And the amount of money that kids are using on these substances could be the equivalent of a down payment of a nice little car by the end of the year. I mean, we are literally talking like in the low thousands. That's scary.
Yeah.
That is scary. So parents, this is your money you're giving for, you know, allowances and things of that nature. So you may want to ask them actually, so where's your money going? I know a lot of kids use their money to go to varsities and go eat, and that's a big thing. And you know what? Good for them. It's a good space to be in. But when you're talking about, I'll throw the, can you throw the slide up about the people who have used marijuana before the age of 12? And this is a concern to me. And we are seeing this more and more. We're going to graduate now, if it's okay with you, Ms. Malosky. We're going to graduate now into where does this lead kids to?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about that.
It is a gateway. And if you're not familiar with gateway means, it means that simply when an individual experiments with a particular type of drug and experiences an effect from it, they get accustomed to the effect. So with the nicotine, you know, it's a stimulant, so they get this little head rush, and they like it, and they grow to like it more, which then becomes a habit. And as the habit progresses, the chances are higher that, it doesn't mean that everyone does it, but the chances are higher that they will graduate into a substance that will bump their high, so to speak. Unfortunately, these vapes, these jewels, are so accessible, and you don't smell it, so you can't detect it. Even with the cartridge of the oils, it's a very sweet smell. That's what I forgot to talk about. What does it smell like? It smells like fruits. It smells like flowers. It smells like something very sweet smelling. So if you're walking into your child's room and you happen to smell something sweet and there's no candle and there's no incense or anything of that nature, question them. Ask them, what's that smell? Actually now tell them, I know what that smell is because Miss D and Miss Malosky educated me on this. And I think that might be something that you're doing.
It's okay.
Me too.
I'm fine with
care
it.
less.
Blame, it's Miss Malosky's fault. She has told you
really
everything.
Could care less. So you know what? You can't just don't bury your head. Your education, knowledge is power. And when you have power, the kids can't get over on you. And it's easy for them to get over on all of us because they're very savvy about a lot of this stuff. They really are.
They're smart.
I wish they put that in other areas of their smartness.
Exactly. Can we take another break? I'm sorry, Mrs. Kramer. We're going to take another break just to organize a few things because we have
we're going to graduate a little bit.
We want to go to the next level, so we want to just prepare, make sure that we have all our stuff in order. We're going to show you a few more videos about Lawrence Middle School from our students. Again, if you want to call us,
come on, talk to us.
The number is 671-5520, extension 4934. Just keep it ringing because it takes us a while to get to the phone. We don't have a lot of hands on deck here. But you can call us at 671-5520, extension 4934. You can email me at mmalasky@ltps.org also. If you just want to call and say you're watching, we'd love to know that you're watching.
Really, make us happy.
Yeah, exactly. So you can give us a call either way. But we're going to go to a video break, and then we'll be back talking to you about what happened, what's the next stuff, the scary stuff that happens after this, and what's out there locally, also in what we're hearing some of what our kids are doing, and so forth. So that's okay. We can keep talking.
Yeah,
we always can talk about stuff
you have
until
two
we
people
get
here
to
that can talk until the cows come home. It's all good.
The video goes on. All right, here we go.
Cool.
Push me to the push me to the push me to the push me to here we go. Stop, hold up. I don't really care if you cry. I don't really shouldn't ever lie. Should've saw the way she looked me in my eyes. She said
We are back, and while we were away, we got a phone call. That's why it took us a little longer to come back. And the phone call question was about, we talked about that this smell is sweet, and that could it be confused with the diffuser or any other type of deodorant-y type of candle.
Right,
you know how you have the
candle,
liquid candles
the
that you
scent,
plug in,
yeah,
the
the
scented
plug-ins,
ones, the
yes.
plug-ins? And the answer is yes. You know, you need to kind of investigate, use that nose to kind of go around and try to figure out where is that scent coming from. And that means, you know, you got to go into Johnny's room and check it. Even though they have the beware sign and says you can't come in, it's your house. So you need to go in and you need to check. So yes, the answer is that it could be something else, and it could be wrong. Right. And you know what? Oh, well.
Oh, well, it's just a question.
Right.
And you know what? It keeps your kids on their toes to let them know that, you know, you're just asking questions, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
All right, so we have a slide that we're going to go to, and it's about, what was it about?
I guess the next unfortunate piece to all of this puzzle is we were talking about gateway drugs.
Yes.
But I think to understand the prevalence of what we're talking about is what addiction looks like. And again, folks, you know, addiction is something that we deal with. It is preventable. We can go into recovery for this, and it's okay. Getting help is the best thing you could do for yourself and for your children. Putting your head in the sand is not going to help anyone.
No.
So we're talking about 1 in 5, you know, 1 in 5 adults live with an alcoholic or an addict while they were growing up. So in addressing this with you folks, you know, we're also talking to people that may be experiencing this themselves. And FYI, you know, I'm not here just for the kids. If there's ever a time that a parent wants to talk about whatever is transpiring that is uncomfortable and needs a confidential ear, I am more than welcome to provide you a conversation. We're here to help you guys. We can provide resources. We can provide you places that you can go and talk about these things. But it's important that you know that, you know, we're talking about a very large population of people in our world. You know, when I talk to students about this, I tell them 1 in 3 of you in this room will in fact be exposed to someone who has an addiction. And that's a large percentage.
Yep.
And so,
there's
you know,
only 4 of us right here now.
Right,
so,
and you know, I could tell you through experience that, you know, in my own life that I've dealt with things of this nature. And I'm not embarrassed of it. I'm here to talk about it because everyone can get healthy, and that's where we want to go. So when we talk about those individuals, then we talk about, which our next slide is, there are about 11 million reported children of addicts that are under the age of 18. So, again, large population of kids out there.
That are at risk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And nationally, 10% nationally, 10% of our population has some type of an addiction that needs to be addressed. So it's 1 in 10 of the kids that I have in our schools. I know that, and I say this all the time, that I will have a job because I'll always have kids. Yeah. But that's not just here. It's everywhere. So when you're talking about this, another slide we had was, 53% of the individuals from Monitoring the Future, which is a huge survey done nationally, over 40,000 students take this survey.
Okay.
So it's legit, reliable information.
Okay.
They
what
found
is it
that
called? What's the survey?
Monitoring the Future.
Monitoring the Future.
You could get it through the National Institute of Drug Addiction. You can look it up. You can look at the research there, which I encourage all of you to do because that's valid information.
Absolutely, yep.
And they provide information for parents and others. But 53% reported using marijuana between the ages of 12 and 17.
So
12 and 17.
7th graders to our seniors.
You got it.
Yeah.
53% of those that experienced marijuana.
And that's not
all.
a one-time, it's using it
Yes.
like more than one time?
Yes.
Okay.
In 2010, 21% of the high school seniors used marijuana in the past 30 days. So we have students using these substances. The challenge for me and for us is how do we get these kids to see that it's just going down a bad path?
Yeah, and it's interesting. So, I said before the break that you could either email me, but I got a text. Oh. And the text came in from the other Miss D. And
thanks, Miss D.
Yeah, and that's Miss D. Tommaso. And she said, watching the videos she wanted us to remind parents, those videos where you see happy kids involved, doing stuff. They're in sports, they're in clubs, they're in activities, and that's the best way to be cool, she said, and that, just stay young and have fun. Like, that's the message. Instead of doing all this exactly
stuff.
what you were just saying, is that we have so many opportunities for them. We're so fortunate to be here in Lawrence, where we have tons of clubs and activities, not just in the schools, but we have the Lawrence Recreation Department. They have tons of things to get kids involved. You have martial arts in the township and all over, in surrounding Mercer County. There's dance, every shopping center you go to, there's, a dance place. So there's so many, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. Get your kids involved.
Yes.
And the more involved and the more things that they're doing and busy, and I'm not saying like overburden them in the time, but make a commitment to something. Do community service as a family. Do those things together. There's great things at the public library. Right, Mrs. Kramer? There's great activities at the public library, but that you can just go to and keep your child active. Work out together. The weather's kind of getting nice.
It's getting there. It's getting
better. Today it's like super warm, so this room is like super hot. But it's a day, like, go out and take a bike ride after school together. Wear your helmets, of course, and then, walk, but get that fresh air as well. Get moving, and when you physically move your body, you feel better.
Always.
Also, so.
And the way that we describe it to kids is, what is the high they're looking for?
Right.
They're looking for the endorphins to kick in. Well, we have natural endorphins.
Yeah.
So we can get the kids to get their natural endorphins going, because this artificial stuff is just artificial. And your brain will get accustomed to it. And you don't want any brain accustomed to an artificial high. And to add to what you were saying, Ms. Woloski, parents are busy.
Yes.
And, are working. And you may come home and, you might not think that you can have dinner together. Well, you know what? There's much research on a family that has dinner together has better coping skills and resiliency building. So even if you're working until 7 or 8 o'clock at night and your kids had dinner at 5, when you come home,
have them sit with you.
You got it, and just have a conversation. Take the cell phones, put them away. They're not allowed to have them. Go out to dinner, take the cell phones. Driving them to school, take the cell phones.
That's a great time to have a conversation.
Opportunity for talk.
Right. And we've been talking about this. We heard that in December from the Mercer County Coalition, George Scott, I believe his name is, and he told us, minimally once a week, you need to sit down and have that face-to-face conversation with your children, with your entire family. Then we talked about that again when we met in January. We talked about it at Screenagers. And in Screenagers, one of the great things that they offered was they had like a Tech Tuesday talk where they gave you conversation starters and where the family was talking about tech issues and what did you think about these things, and they gave you specific questions. And I've heard a lot of parents talk about that they have, one of our teachers, I'll give a shout out to Mrs. Reynolds, she talked about it, her family, and she has young children, a middle schooler, like a young middle schooler, 6th grader, and I think a 4th grader, and they have a dinner book. And so when they go out to dinner, and in the dinner book is games. So where we used to play on a napkin, tic-tac-toe, they have a book that has all these different things. And so when they go out to dinner, they're using that book to start to play play these games and then have conversation. So there's those little things, and I actually been looking and doing some research. There's actually cards that you can buy and then have those conversations, because it can't be like, just how was your day? Right. Because that's when you're going to get nothing, it was fine, you know, all of those things. So, so there's things out there that you can do, and exactly those, to have you feel, you know, giving an affirmation, telling somebody.
That was going to be my next thing. Yeah.
You look great today,
yeah,
Ann.
Exactly. And even if they look at you like, oh, you're just saying that.
Thanks for being here, you know, like. We have our Mrs. D, she's at the front door greeting kids when they come to school every day, and it's an important thing to have that face-to-face. Like, we're glad they come every day to school. We really appreciate that they come and they're here with us and they share the day with us. And, you know, it sounds kooky, but it's real. Like, you know, we have a fabulous staff that really care about kids, and just hopefully, you know, through those conversations, you feel good, you know,
and
about
it builds
yourself.
their self-esteem. Yeah. And that is so important, so important. The #1 issue for kids that use substances, when I ask them, why do you do it? Their #1 answer is, there's nothing to do, I'm bored.
Yeah.
And
we get that on board all the time.
Take the boredom out of the equation.
Yeah.
Okay?
That drives me crazy. I'm bored.
Because there's so much to do.
Right.
And even when they think they're bored, they're not bored. You know, when I ask them, you know, and here's the classic reason why this is becoming so prevalent with our society, because this gives them something to do. When in reality, you don't hear the kids that are having a sleepover and having a movie night with their friends with popcorn. Yeah. They don't talk about it. Yeah. You hear stuff on the streets like, oh, you know, I got a dab pen, and talk about those things. Dab pens, important piece. A dab pen is something similar to this, but they have a cartridge, and unfortunately we do not have one, which is a good thing, I guess. It's a longer cartridge that's kind of almost this size that they connect to this, but what is in it is marijuana oil.
Okay.
And
I didn't know there was a marijuana oil.
There is a marijuana oil, and it is called dabbing. So parents, know the lingo. If you hear anything about dabbing, dabbing is a very high concentrate of THC, which is the chemical compound in marijuana, the leafy stuff. Yep. So to give an example,
that's the bad stuff.
And I'll age myself a little bit, but when I was younger, marijuana content in a regular marijuana plant was between 10 and 15% THC level. Dab oil, which does come in these cartridges as well, is between 80 and 95% THC oil. So think about that for a second, what it's doing to an adolescent brain.
So it's not fully developed already.
Exactly. And this is my greatest concern, is that this is what we're going, unfortunately, if the gateway continues, this is what inevitably we'll see.
So what I'm always concerned about is, like, if we sent out a kid to get tested, you know, sometimes we know the kid says that, you know, yeah, I smoked pot over the weekend, and it's Tuesday now. Like we find out, we might send a kid out. but the levels don't come back in the test. But that doesn't, why does that happen sometimes?
That's a very good question.
Like that we're not seeing it on a report. Is it the way that the drug test is?
That could be.
The level for adults versus kids?
Well, no. THC normally, the half-life of a 10 to 15% THC level is between 2 weeks and a month.
Wow.
So when you're talking an oil of 90%, it should most certainly show up in a drug test. And you can drug test your kids at home, by the way.
So if you just took one
puff off of it,
I mean, are you going to come up positive?
it depends on when the test, if the
okay.
test was that day,
Right.
you'll absolutely come up positive. Normally, obviously, if they're not using anything, it's a 0.
Right.
If they smoked marijuana within the last 2 weeks, but not much of it, your levels are usually between like 0 to like 30.
Okay.
We've had students with levels over 1,000.
Wow. Wow.
So we know that these students are regular users.
Yeah.
You can drug test your children. If you're in doubt, drug test your kids. If
And
you're
you don't
in
have
doubt,
to go to the pediatrician.
no,
You can do that right in your own
yes,
home.
and
Yeah.
you can go to CVS and get a drug test and find out. Most importantly, if you're thinking about giving a drug test to your child, obviously you're concerned. Don't do it alone. Outreach to us. We can help you. That's our job and our goal. So we wanted to share this information, parents, so that you can be more educated, be aware of what's out there, know that we care enough that if you have any questions, if you're embarrassed to call in us,
Right.
give us a call.
Yeah.
I can only speak for myself. My confidentiality is very, 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 very tight. I don't share it with individuals, administrators of that nature. I have helped parents, I've helped kids, I've helped parents get into treatment. It's not just about the kids, it's about your family. And we care enough about your families to do something to help you educate yourselves, get your knowledge, go out on the websites, go find these things, learn. That's what we want for you.
So, Ann, thank you so much
Welcome.
for being here. Really appreciate it. And really valuable information that you shared tonight.
I hope.
Sometimes we're like, okay, we're going to go this angle, but thank you so much for being here. Again, call this number if you have any. If this is Ann's actually
This is my
information
number.
that
Call
you're
me.
seeing right now, and her email address is on the screen. You can call her directly. Her extension is there, and her email if you need to contact her. Her office is located at the high school. That's where her main location is. But if you come here to the middle school and you need to speak with her, we can get you in touch with her easily as well. The last thing I just want to remind you of is that the April 30th, if you want to learn more about this conversation, there will probably be other parents at this in Princeton, at the Princeton Police Department. This was actually sent in to me by a parent. A parent emailed this flyer to us, so thank you. You know who you are. And so this is being Corner House Behavioral Health in Princeton is running it, and Dr. Richard is going to be speaking about it. And, vaping, what do you need to know? You guys know a little bit now. Hopefully you can learn a whole lot more by talking to her. We want to give out a shout out to Jay Billy. He's watching, Slackwood Principal. Thanks for watching us. And
Thanks.
we know at least a few people. We had 2 phone calls, a text message. So we know some of you are watching. We know more will be watching this on replay. But this was our first streaming event. Thank you to Mrs. Kramer.
Yay.
And thank you to Cornelia.
Yay.
Come on out. I keep looking at the booth
Shout out.
here. Here's our girl.
Yay.
There she is. Cornelia is doing all the behind-the-scenes work for us, flipping back to slides and videos and to our Elmo to get you information. So we can't do it without her and Mrs. Kramer. So exciting stuff happening here at Lawrence Middle School. We got lots going on till the end of the year. Check out our new red and white calendar. It is posted. 8th grade parents, check the website also. Check your email about end of the year activities that are coming up. We want our kids to be safe and happy and healthy. And we're going to leave you with our 3-2-1 video about LMS. And you're going to see a lot of happy faces on this video. It's a great place here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Take care.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Lawrence Middle School, we are committed to providing a safe and caring environment for our students. We rely on our students, our staff, and our students' families to create a climate where everyone feels safe, comfortable, and accepted. We want our students to love coming to Lawrence Middle School. We strive to promote academic excellence, and our teachers utilize strategies based on current research and the most effective classroom practices, all while recognizing individual differences in learning among our students. Our school encourages academic leadership, character development, and intellectual curiosity. At Lawrence Middle School, we work together to help our students become tomorrow's citizens.